Hello, good evening, and a very warm welcome to everybody present here for today's session. In the next hour or so, we will try to understand how to work on your B School resume, particularly the RNA and the CV documents, templates that you might have already gone through our email communications with you. And again, we would go into deeper nitty-gritties of understanding the responsibilities, achievements, how you can provide the right details on your documents. Right? Before we dive into the session, before I introduce myself, some of you might already recognize me because we've had interactions. For some, I might be a new face. Before I go into that, I just want to quickly ask a poll question if everybody can hear me or not. Okay. So if everybody can hear me, please answer yes. If you cannot, if you cannot, please say no. And in case anybody cannot answer what cannot hear what I'm saying, please try to join back using the same link. Most of the people seem to have voted, just waiting for a couple more. Am I audible to everybody? All right, I guess most people can hear me. In case there's anybody who cannot, please join back again. All right, let's get started for today's session. Right. First of all, let me quickly introduce myself. Shikhar here, and I am a senior editor here at Career Labs, and I have had experience of guiding 500 plus clients with sales application documents. And some of you might already be familiar with me. Some of you might have worked with my colleague Srijita, who, by the way, is also taking a session tomorrow. So, in case any of you, do not have full-time work experience, any of you are joining as students, please feel free to let my team know, and they will add you for a session which is for tomorrow in the afternoon at 1 p.m. as well. Okay. Since today's session will be more focused on working professionals. All right. Just to get an idea of what we'll be doing in today's session, we will understand the different components of a B school resume, right? How it differs from sort of a job resume and what's required for a B school resume. We would try to understand what are the differences between responsibilities and achievements, and why both of them are important in a certain manner. Right? In case anybody cannot see my screen, can you maybe mention that in chat? All right, I think I am facing a technical difficulty. Just give me a couple of minutes. I will fix that right now. All right, so I hope everybody can see my screen properly now. If you can just hit a yes in the chat box or in the questions tab. Yeah, yeah. Excellent. Excellent. So moving ahead with the session again, right? We will be understanding the components of a B school resume, the differences between responsibilities, achievements, and how to bring those out, how to frame them, how to provide the right details for your resume, right? We will also be working on trying to get your B school resume at least 50% ready. And yes, it is possible within the duration of the session, provided you're following along and you're working along with me. In order to do that, you will of course need the CV and RNA templates that you can get from the handout section. There are definitely a few familiar names in the attendee list over here. So if you're already in the process of working on the documents, on the CV and RNA documents, you do not have to work on a fresh CV and RNA template. Wherever you are in the process, please try to get some of your clear points mentioned. And if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and ask, which I will be taking up, throughout the session as well whenever possible, and of course at the end in a quick Q&A session, right? So once again, before we proceed, if you're new to the process and you haven't worked on your CV and RNA templates yet, do get both of them along with of course the respective guides as well from the handout section. Okay. Now, the first question that I want to ask: why are you people here today? Right off the bat, I said if you do not have any professional experience at all, you are a student, you would be better suited in the session that we are having tomorrow at 1 p.m. So if that is the case for you, you can of course you can choose to watch the session. This will also be a learning experience. But otherwise, you can let my team know through MBA consulting at thecareerlabs.com, and they will be able to add you to tomorrow's session as well, which will be more informative for students. All right. But in general, for other people who are working professionals, right, I would like to quickly find out how much work experience you have, just to get an idea of what kind of uh, audience we're dealing with today. So if you can just quickly put that in, that would be great. Excellent. Okay, so I see that we have somebody or the other from every bracket. We have some people with less than 2 years of experience, 2 to 4 years of experience. Some people with up to 7 years of experience, and even we have a few people who have 10 years of experience and more. Right? So a very diverse audience for today. That's interesting, and I think most of the people have voted. So I'll just share the results. Uh, so yeah, a very diverse mix of people. So we will be discussing multiple different approaches, multiple different ways of understanding how you can, make your resume better tailored to your experience and to reflect your experience, your work in the best manner possible. Okay. Uh, Besides that, another question that I wanted to ask all of you was, what is the length of your exact current CV? How long is it today? At this point. So I understand a few people might not have a CV at all. Some people might be currently working on the process with us, right? So wherever you are, whatever is the length of your document at present, you can definitely put it in. Most people I'm seeing have 2 pages. Okay, a couple of people are saying 1 page. Some are longer than 2 pages as well, which is perfectly fine. If you're following our process, if you're already in the CV review process, it's fine for your document to be longer than 2 pages right now. We will, of course, work on condensing and bringing it down to a 1 page resume. But then the final outcome required is, of course, a 1 pager, right? There are a couple of people who have a 1 page resume already. However, I'm not sure if you've already, worked on the process with us. If not, if you have not started working on our process of the CV critiquing, the CV and RNA and everything, which we will be discussing shortly as well, uh, I would definitely encourage you to start with that as soon as possible. Okay. Because see, getting these CVs ready, getting your resume ready in advance is very important. The reason is because it helps you network with people, not only for your actual application in the end, but more importantly, it helps you network with people throughout, right? Multiple B schools have their interactive sessions and things like that, wherein you can share your properly framed and crafted resume, and you can get an idea of uh, what they feel about your profile, whether they whether you would have a good chance of getting in, whether that school is something which fits your needs, etc. Okay. All right. So, with that being said, let's just move ahead with the session and understand what makes a B school resume different. That's different from what? Different from a job resume. That regardless of whether you have applied for a B school application or not, you must have definitely applied for a job or another, right? So what makes a B school resume different from a job resume? Both are required to be limited in length, that is a one pager, right? But what is the difference in the approach for both? First and foremost, a B school resume is not intended to be a functional CV that shows all of your skills, everything that you've done, right? Your entire back history, right? That's not what a B school resume is. The purpose here is different. It is to win an MBA seat, and for that you need to show your key highlights throughout your career and how your career has grown as well, right? So your career progression is the most important aspect of your B school resume. There are of course other sections as well, which we will discuss eventually, like your volunteering experience, leadership experience, extracurricular activities, and things like that. But obviously, for any working professional going for a B school program, career progression and the professional experience overall is the most important aspect. Now, as I was saying, a job resume will focus a lot on skills because you're trying to show and you're trying to prove that, okay, I have the skills that you require for the job. So you should definitely pick me because I will be able to do the job well. A B school admissions committee does not care about that. They do not want you to do any job. They want you to get into business, right, and to understand, how businesses work and how you can play a part in that, right? So they would be more focused, and in fact, your resume for that reason would need to be more focused on results, impacts, and achievements. Right? So, what is the impact that you've made throughout your career, throughout your different roles? Which means the achievements become a very integral part of it. Again, some of you might already be aware of what responsibilities and achievements are, but we will quickly discuss that as well in some time. Okay, but overall, achievements have to be the key focus of a B school resume. Okay. Now, what are the overall components of a B school resume? We, of course, have uh, professional experience, which will be the most prominent aspect, which is why it is sort of, in darker color, right? Research experience might not be that important for a B school program, for a management based program, because as you can see, these talk about projects usually from your college days, right? From your undergraduate, or in case you have a master's degree, from your postgraduate programs, right? That's not super relevant because most of these research projects are from a technical background and they would not be very relevant for a B school or management program. Okay. On the other hand, if you're coming from a background in BBA, right, or any field that is aligned to business, right, in that case, if you have any relevant projects, you can feel free to mention that, and you will find that in the handouts we have the CV template, right? In that, there is a research experience section in which you can put in your projects. Okay? We will not spend a lot of time discussing on that today because that might not be very relevant to most of you over here. Besides professional experience, though, there are a few other sections which will be important and which will be indispensable in the resume, which are education, of course, pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Your scores when you completed which level of education, 10th, 12th, your bachelor's, master's, etc. And very importantly, all of your extracurricular activities, or for working professionals, you can say extra professional activities as well. Okay. Uh, Now, when we look at extra professional or extracurricular activities, it is important to remember that it can be of various types. It doesn't have to be limited to cultural, sports, etc. activities only, but it's very important. It's super important to have leadership experience or volunteering experience, which is these two portions over here. All right. So volunteering experience is something that, uh, of course, allows you to put your skills to good use besides your professional responsibilities and things like that. And these schools really love that. These schools appreciate that. Right? Besides that, volunteering experience also allows you to probably lead when you are not in a very leadership oriented role, when you're an individual contributor. Right? Because we have a few individual contributors among the audience today, and for you, for people like you, it would definitely be helpful if you were able to lead a team or lead certain initiatives, even though you are an individual contributor at work, because leadership is an important skill that the admissions committees want to see. So that can come through community service, through volunteering experiences, as well as hard and fast leadership experience itself. It could be that you were a club president, or back in college, or maybe you're taking up additional leadership initiatives at work. At work, but not within the confines of your main responsibilities. Right? So those things can come in as well. Right? But the most important thing to remember here is all of this has to be in one page. Right? So that automatically makes it very clear to you that, of course, If all of it has to be in one page, you will have to keep the most significant aspects only, and some of the less significant ones might have to fall through the grades eventually. Okay. Somebody is asking, since I have registered for tomorrow's session, should I attend this one? If you have professional experience, even if you have 6 months of professional experience, do attend today's session. If you do not have any professional experience at all, and if if you're just a student at this moment, right, you might have internships and things like that. It would be better that you attend tomorrow's session. So this is in response to a question that was asked. Since I have registered for tomorrow's session, should I attend today's session or not? Okay. So I hope that is answered. Now we understand what are the components of a resume, right? What would an ideal resume look like in the end? So this is what I have for you guys, a sort of a sample. But then again, I wouldn't say a sample necessarily. This is of a fictitious character where the different roles might not make a lot of sense together, right? The different responsibilities and achievements might not make a lot of sense together. But the purpose is to understand what your ideal resume should look like in the end. Of course, it's black and white. It's not very, colorful. It's not very interesting that way. But then it focuses on the right content and it presents the content in the right manner, right? So this is somebody who has almost 2015 to now, so that's like 7.5 years of work experience or so, which is sort of in the average range of the audience we have today. Okay. Of course, I wouldn't expect you to look at it in this kind of a manner. We will, of course, look into the zoomed in version as well. But the main thing to see is the education section is a very small part. Other sections which take up the leadership experience, volunteering experience, awards, etc., take up another a smaller portion. Right? Professional experience takes up half or somewhat more than half of the page. In fact, for most people with a decent amount of work experience, anything above five years, their final resume usually devotes around 75% of the space to the professional experience itself. Right? If we go a little deeper into it, we see the different roles that the person has gone through, from an SAP functional consultant to the next company where they were an operations analyst, and then to a project manager, and then division manager. Right? So this clearly shows their career progression, how they've gone from a smaller role to a much higher role, and how, of course, their responsibilities have increased uh, in that journey. The teams that they were managing have increased. So it's 25. Earlier it was 10, and then before that they were probably an uh, individual contributor as well, right? So it's very important to show this sort of a progression. Now, for some of you, you might still be an individual contributor. You might not have necessarily, manager level experience at the moment, which is perfectly fine. It's okay. Right? Even for you, there are ways to show career progression that can happen through responsibilities, achievements, through projects, and we will discuss that eventually as well. But what's very important to understand is your resume, your B-School resume, should clearly show how you have grown and progressed in your career, how you've created impact through your work, and how that has also increased over the time. Right? That's something we will talk about throughout. There you'll notice a lot of clear numbers, right? Clear figures over here, because quantifying your work as well as you can is very important from a B school adcoms standpoint. Okay, that's something that they look for, because that's something which is very objective and helps them to compare you to other applicants, right, who might be from either similar or different backgrounds. Right, it can be either way. It's not that you're just competing with people who are from a similar industry or domain as yourself, but for you're competing with people from a myriad of different industries. Okay. Now, before we, dive into the RNA and how the process works, of course, we will be discussing the other sections as well. But as I said, professional experience is the most important. So I want to discuss that first. But before we do that, and since you already have an idea of what are the different components of a resume, right? I want to get an idea of which of the followings you have already completed. Since I see there are quite a few people who have already begun the process with us. Which of these sections have you guys already completed? Can you just put in your answers? That would be great. Okay. So most of the people have completed their education section. Some people have completed extracurricular activities, volunteering. Okay. All right. So I'm seeing that most of you have completed professional experience. Um, I'm not sure how accurate that would be, but at least I feel that most of you have at least started working on your professional experience section, right? So that's great news. That's great news. Okay. Um, Besides that, let's look at the other sections as well. Which of these do you have in your existing profile? So I saw international experience from someone for the previous question. I would be really interested to see what sort of international experience you have. So feel free to just put in into the questions tab or into the chat tab what sort of international experience you have, in what capacity, for how long, right? I would like to hear that so that I could probably guide better on that. Okay. All right. So most of the people here have leadership experience, and some people have entrepreneurial experience as well. Again, the process for the approach for entrepreneurial experience is pretty similar to what we have for the professional experience. We have responsibilities, we have achievements, and it just goes that way. The only difference is it is more of a highlighted section because not everybody has entrepreneurial experience, and we basically show it as a separate section from the regular professional experience. That's all. The approach is pretty much the same. What work have you done? What impact you've created? All of that. Again, we will be taking a quick dive into responsibilities and achievements shortly as well. So yeah, I guess we collected all the responses. Right. So yeah, so this is basically what the audience today has: some entrepreneurial experience, some leadership experience, and so on and so forth. Excellent. What about professional awards? What about extracurricular awards and activities, scholarships, memberships? Do any of you have these to mention? Can we get a quick, can we get a very quick response on this? Okay, I'm happy to see that most of you do have volunteering experience. For those of you who do not have any volunteering experience, please try to take something up in the coming months because that's an important aspect when you look at a B school applicant's overall profile, right? It's not that it is mandatory that everybody has to have it, but it definitely helps, right? No scholarships among us today. That's strange, but okay, that's okay. That's fine. Okay. So we have a good mix of experiences, a good mix of things to show under different sections. So we will be discussing that eventually as well. All right, excellent. Now let's dive into the need for the RNA. Why exactly we need the RNA, how the process goes, and why we are asking you to work on two separate documents. Dude, I am supposed to have a resume at the end. You might ask me. I am supposed to have a single resume. Why do you want me to work on two separate documents? Simply for the reason that I said. The professional experience section is the most important and is the most significant part of your overall profile. So what we do is we separate that into the RNA document and we focus on getting all of your content in place for these, right? We focus on getting all of your clear laid out responsibilities and the translated achievements from them as well, right? So that you have a repository of everything that you have. Okay. One place where it becomes very important is even for schools which do not ask for a CV at all, for schools which do not ask for a resume at all. And one of them is our very own ISB, Indian School of Business. So they do not ask for a resume, they just want a list of all of your responsibilities, all of your achievements. And if you have worked on the RNA document with us at the time of application, you do not need to, start thinking about and framing all of these things again from scratch. You already have that present in your RNA. You just pick it up and you drop it into the application portal. As simple as that. Okay. Now, how do we move from a much broader and extensive RNA to the CV, to the resume? We go through the career progression section, through which we basically want to highlight your major highlights in your profile that showcase how your career has grown over the years. Eventually, we move into the multi-page CV, wherein, of course, it's a little longer than a one-pager. It can usually go to 1.5 pages or something like that, right? This is complete. You can share it with the adcom. You can share it with the, as I said, you can share it in your interactive sessions that you might be having with different B schools, right? Many of those sessions happen throughout the year, so you can definitely use it over there. But then for the actual application, you will need a one-page resume, which will help you with trimming as per standard B school requirements. And this is just a flow of how this process entirely goes, right? From the RNA stage to career progression to resume. Okay. Now, as far as your goals from today's session are concerned, right? I already understand that the first one is checked for most of you, which is great. For those of you who have not started with the CV critiquing process, do get started with it as soon as possible. Send us your first version of your RNA and CV after today's session, hopefully, and we can move you ahead with the CV process as well. Okay. For others who have started and have not completed the RNA yet, your goal would be to get the RNA section completed. For those, and I see already a few names here who have made some progress in the RNA section, for you, the goal would be to get your career progression section ready, or at least move to that, right? And eventually, of course, get your overall longer CV or your one-page B school resume as well completed. Okay. The last two are longer term goals, are broader goals, which we do not expect you to accomplish right now in today's session as well itself. But if you can, nothing better. Okay. Now, let's come into the responsibilities and achievements for a bit, right? We've been talking about these are the things that I want you to talk about. This is why, this is what the B schools want to see in your profile or in the standard, in an ideal uh, management degree profile, right? So, what are responsibilities and how do you differentiate responsibilities from achievements? See, responsibilities are simply what you're doing on a daily basis or even periodically for that matter. Somebody comes and asks me, "Hey, I've been doing this, but happens only 3 months in a year. But it happens every year, so it's fixed. Right? I am supposed to do this 3 months in a year, or for 3 months twice a year. Okay. So would this be a responsibility or not? Yes, it would be a responsibility. You can show the scale at which you're doing it, for what time you're doing it, or things like that. But in general, most of your responsibilities would be continuously ongoing in the role. Every day you go to work, you work on these things. Right? But how do you show it clearly? First thing that I say is a job description is a good reference for your responsibility, but that's all it is. A good reference, just a good starting point to understand, okay, these are the different things that I'm doing. You cannot just pick your job description and put it into your resume. No, no way. Okay. Why? Because see, that job description is the same for everybody in that role. Okay. But when you have your name at the top of the resume, you need to show your own experiences. What have you done in the role, and at what scale, which might differ from somebody else in the same role? Let's say, let's talk about a design engineer for that matter, right? You are a design engineer working at a particular organization. There is another bigger company which with much bigger projects, and that also has a design engineer. That person would be working on something at a different scale entirely, right? So these are the specifics that have to come up because you have lived through this experience. You have gone through these responsibilities. So for you, these pointers should not be things that basically show what somebody in the role would be required. You should clearly show what you have done in this role. Okay. How do you do that? You basically take this sort of an approach, right? These are, sorry, yeah. So you would see these would be your pointers in filling out the details. Sorry, I'm facing another glitch. Right. So sorry for that. So sorry for that. Yeah. So these are sort of the elements that you would want to include in your document, right? And in your responsibilities. And this is how it is supposed to flow ideally. What exactly you're doing, at what scale, or at what volume. And if it's applicable, you can include, the scope or complexity of the work as well. And finally, what is the intended outcome? What is the end goal that you're chasing with that responsibility? Right? This is how you structure an ideal responsibility. As I said, the job description is a good reference. It can give you the different directions in which you do your work. Right? It can give you an idea of okay, these are the 10 different things that I'm doing. You might not realize it right off the bat because it's something of a daily task for you, right? A job description will give you some clarity on identifying the different lines, right? It's up to you to follow this kind of a structure, to give the specific details and frame that specific responsibility as per your experiences and yours only. Okay. If we look at achievements, the end of this was for what intended outcome, right? So that outcome is what eventually translates into your achievements. There is a goal that you were chasing. There is a kind of, um, expected outcome that you were chasing. Once you've achieved that outcome, once you've delivered that outcome, that is what becomes your achievement. Simple as that, right? How do you show an achievement? This does not have four different elements. It's very simple. It's very basic. Result followed by action or effect followed by cause. What we mean basically by this is what is the impact you've created, right? If there is an improvement that you've brought along, what have you improved, right? If you reduced cost, what how much have you reduced, how much have you saved the company, things like that, right? And the action basically focuses on how did you do that, what did you do differently, or what did you do better than what was already happening before you, right? Why was this change so sudden, right? So basically the action focuses on the how part of it and the result focuses on the what part of it, and the way you show it is I did so and so, so and so, I delivered so and so outcomes by streamlining this or by improving this, by modifying this, etc. All right. Now, to get an idea of what all you can include under your achievements, first thing that most people say, awards. I have got an award. Something that most people, many people also tell me that, hey, my organization does not give out awards, so I do not have any achievements to mention over here. No, sorry, you're terribly mistaken. You do have your achievements as long as you're doing your work. Right? So an achievement does not have to be limited to just awards. In fact, we have a few examples over here. You can look at your performance metrics based on which, your manager would decide whether you're ready for a promotion or not, right? Based on which they would be able to compare your performance to your peers, right? So those performance metrics can be your achievements, right? A couple of achievements for that matter, at least. Besides that, we have success metrics, right? You had a certain responsibility. How well did you do it, right? How would you measure that? How would you analyze that? How would you show that? That becomes another achievement. Okay. Besides that, we have business impact, usually in terms of money. If you save the organization some money, or if you help them, expand their business in some manner or improve their business in any sort of a manner, that becomes an important achievement as well. Besides that, you have process improvements, establishing new processes or modifying existing processes, right? If you've established a new vertical itself in your organization, or if you've developed dashboards or systems that make things easier, make things better, right? Any of these can be very strong achievements from a B school resume perspective. Okay? As long as you mention both of these, the result and the action behind it as well. Okay, so let's look at a couple of quick examples over here, just so that for those of you who are not into the process completely are also getting a better idea of how to frame your responsibilities. Okay, so let's just see these examples over here. Managing 250 plus accounts and supervising operations function. Those are 50 walk-in customers per week, right? So what's happening over here in the first one? What exactly is the person doing? Managing this many accounts and supervising operation function, right? At what scale or volume? 50 accounts, 250 plus accounts, right? In fact, this is a mix of two, right? A mix of two responsibilities clubbed into one, but they're aligned. Right? For what outcome? To serve so customers, right? Let's look at the second one as well. Leading a team of 12. Again, leading a team, that's what they're doing. Team of 12, at what scale or volume? For what purpose? To translate unstructured business issues and develop develop organized strategic growth plans, right? So that's how it basically goes. If we look at the achievements again, we have the result first: reduce cash outflow by this much, or mitigated 20 million in losses, expanded customers company base by 500, etc., etc. And then the rest of it follows when talking about the action. Okay, so by verifying 50 claims received in 24 plus currencies, or ensuring strong market presence through promotional activities. This talks about how they've brought out these outcomes, right? Simple as that. So there's no rocket science to this. As long as you understand the structure, as long as you understand the elements that you need to provide for the right details, for the right, you know, the details for the work that you've done, you would have pretty strong points going in for your resume or for your RMA for that matter. Okay. This is something that I did not ask earlier. I want to get an idea of this as well. I assume since most of you have said you have a good amount of professional experience, you would have full-time experience, of course. But I also want to see if anybody here has part-time experience, internships, things like that. Okay, so I have some responses for internships. As expected, we have full-time work experience as well from most people. Mhm. I am actually expecting 100% turnout for full-time work experience, since, of course, today's session is intended for people with full-time work experience. Okay, so we have some part-time, some internships. Somebody says none as well. Again, I will just remind you, if you do not have any work experience at all, you would be better suited for tomorrow's session. Do join that. You can stay here today as well. This will help you, maybe not today, maybe 2 years down the line, right? Uh, but then you should definitely join tomorrow's session. That will be more aligned with what you require with your needs. Okay. For people with work experience, full-time work experience, good enough. Part-time work experience, very similar approach, right? Responsibilities, achievements, internships as well. If you've had a lot of years of professional experience, your internships are not that valuable anymore. It's not that important for your resume. So you would not need to worry about that too much. Of course, you have the template for it. You have the format for it in the CV template. So take the similar approach as we discussed for responsibilities, for achievements, perhaps if you can. Uh, but that will be pretty much, it will be much shorter, much smaller. For people with lesser experience, say 2 years, 3 years of work experience, you can definitely include your internships as well, provided you can show some sort of, managerial sort of experience or something of a learning experience, which help you get a better idea of the industry, of the domain, and things like that, right? Again, the focus I would say should also be on impact. Try to show impact as far as you can, even through your internships. Okay. So I'll just pull that down. So the next question I have here is, are you now clear about the differences between responsibilities and achievements? If anybody is saying no, please give me hit me up on why exactly you're not clear or what is your confusion. Please ask in chat, and either I or my team will be happy to answer your query or your confusion. So somebody has said no. Please mention in the questions tab or in the chat tab whether you have a particular query and you haven't yet understood the differences between uh, responsibilities and achievements. And team, I would request that you make a note of this, and maybe we can get a session, we can get a discussion with them to help them understand better how to differentiate between the two. For all those of you who are saying yes, though, I have another couple of questions. So there are a few people who said no, not very happy with that, but fine, we'll deal with it. Right? If you're not clear yet, we can definitely discuss that further and probably get your own examples in place so that we can get it done, right? Along with this, I hope some of you have also been able to, work on your own responsibilities and achievements, and I will be asking for that in a while in the chat, right? But the next question that I have over here is for those people who have said yes, in fact, for those who've said no as well, which of these do you feel uh, sorry, just a second. Yeah. Which of these do you think is the responsibility? Can we get some very quick responses on this? For all the 75% people who've understood what a responsibility is and what an achievement is, you should be able to answer this very easily. Quick, quick, quick. All right. So most of you got the right answer. Coordinating with project lead for blah 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 blah. That's obviously a responsibility, something which is ongoing, right? And somebody again, as we saw that some people were not very clear about the differences. We'll get in touch. We'll try to solve this, right? That's the wrong answer though. Okay. Let's look at achievements as well. Which of these do you think is the achievement or the accomplishment? Again, two names for the same thing. Also, you would notice that these are very short. It does not follow the entire structure of either a responsibility or of an achievement. That's just for the purpose of this poll, right? Because of course we cannot accommodate a lot of content on the lines, right? But it still gives you a clear idea of which could be the right thing, which could be the wrong one. All right, so a majority of people have voted, and I'm happy that all of you have got the right answer, right? And that is generated 5 million in revenue. That's obviously the outcome because sourcing materials, managing social media channels, managing a team of people, these are all ongoing responsibilities that somebody would have in various roles. Right? Just one more before we move ahead from this. Yeah, and that is this one. Again, which of these is the achievement? Okay, so surprise, surprise, there are a couple of people who have said either both of the above or none of the above. The correct answer is achieve 65% growth in secondary sales, blah, 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 blah. Because that's obvious. The first word is pretty obvious, achieved, right? So those who say that it's both or none of the above, I'm not sure why, but I will give you a reason of why this is the case. That the second one is an achievement, because the first is talking about managing end-to-end, data or daily processes for something. Okay, this is something you do overall. This is something you do over a longer period of time that you do on a daily basis, right? It's not the outcome. It's not the final thing that you're delivering or that you're achieving. Some of you, I think, who said both of the above might have been confused because of the first one, because both of these are in past tense. Because we'll see for all achievements, achievements will always be achievements will always be in past tense. Why? Because you've achieved it already. You've already delivered that outcome, right? Or you've already improved something or reduced something, whatever the case may be. But for responsibilities, if it is an ongoing one, of course, it is in present continuous, like managing, creating, developing, etc., etc. For older roles or for even earlier responsibilities in your current role, if that is something you're not doing anymore, it can be in past tense as well. So don't just go by tense. All right. So yeah, this was the result. I'm happy that most of the people are clear with these. But again, for the people who are not too clear, please let us know what is the confusion you're having, and we'll be happy to help you with it. If you have any questions, I am still, open to getting them in the questions tab. I can pick that up and answer those, or my team can discuss those as well. Okay. Now, moving ahead from this, right? You have a clear, again, I would say a majority of you have a clear idea about how to proceed with responsibilities, with achievements, how to address them. A few key guidelines on overall thing, right? Of course, I've given detailed structures before in the previous slides that are over here. Okay. But besides that, overall, sort of housekeeping guidelines, each bullet point, it should not be any longer than 1.5 lines. Okay. You cannot write a paragraph. You cannot write an essay in your resume or in our RNA for that matter. Okay. Your points should always start with an action verb. So be it for a responsibility, be it for an achievement, developed, developing, analyzed, analyzing, reduced, improved, achieved, delivered, etc., etc., etc. Okay. Always start with an action verb. Why? Because that makes it very specific to you. Okay. I see many people, if they're just putting in their job description into the RNA, which is not the right way to go at all. If they're doing that, I often see points starting with to, like to organize so and so, to coordinate with XYZ, right? It's a clear giveaway that this is just a job description point and not a specific responsibility of your own. Okay. And if you go into further details or if you write in passive voice, for example. That's some people have done in the past as well. I've noticed that. Okay. If you're writing in passive voice, as in business was improved by this much percent, or this product was launched, or the project was completed 90% before the delivery time. Excellent, great, good news. But then, what was your involvement with that, sir? Yeah, that's not very clear. Okay, so if you're writing in passive voice, this was done, this happened, that happened, right? It doesn't show your actions. When you start with an action verb, it connects it very directly to yourself. So whenever you're saying develop, it automatically implies that I developed, okay, or I analyzed, I reduced, I improved, okay, without having to write the word I. So always start with an action verb. Limit your points to 1.5 lines. For the initial versions, even 2 lines is fine. It's acceptable, okay. But for the final resume, of course, 1 to 1.5 lines is the way to go. Effect followed by cause in the structure of your achievements, most importantly, right? As we discussed, result followed by action, effect followed by cause. And it's very important to add numbers and figures wherever you can. Percentages, monetary values, scale, volume in whatever is the relevant metric for it, right? Make sure to provide numbers as and where you can for responsibilities and most importantly for achievements as well. Okay. So by now you should understand what is the difference between the RNA document and the D-School resume as well. Right? We understood the responsibilities, achievements, how to write them, and all of that. Right? That goes into the RNA document. Okay? It has all of your responsibilities, all of your achievements for all of your roles. The B School resume, on the other hand, of course, it has content for all the roles, yes, but it has only the key highlights, only the top points. And when we say top points, we want a larger focus on your achievements and maybe a shorter version of your key responsibilities, right? Or maybe fewer responsibilities, but more focus on the achievements. Okay. What's the purpose of the RNA document? It is for the application, yes, for applications such as ISB, as I already said, but also for your interview. Okay. While the B School resume will be a much condensed version, it will help you with connecting with these schools for your actual applications and during your interviews as well. The RNA document is much more useful because it gives a broader thing for you to refer to as well at a later point. Okay, but the B School resume is ideally what the AdCom or the B School will see, the one pager. Okay, and how do we move through that? We already have discussed through the career progression section, right? Um, Another aspect from the template is projects. But before that, I would suggest that all of you who have not started with your responsibilities and achievements document yet, try to get at least one role done today in today's session itself. Okay. In a while, if we have the time for it, I would like to see some of your examples as well. Some, you could share one of your responsibilities and one of your achievements. I would be happy to bring those in so that we can discuss those, right? If the time permits, that is. So try to get started with it if you haven't already. If you have, very good. Keep up the pace and share it with us for review soon. Okay. Now, the next thing that is there in the uh, RNA document, in the RNA template, is the project template, right? Now, before I go into, how do you write a project? You have it in front of you. How do you structure it? You talk about what you did, why it was necessary, that is the context, right? And how did you do it, right? The impact of the task and all of that. But what's important is when is the project necessary? Okay. For some of you, a project might not be necessary in your resume at all, especially for the people who have 10 plus years of work experience, right? You simply do not have the space to write a project in your resume. Forget about 3, 4 projects. Okay. So for you, this is not necessary at all. But whom does it help? It helps mainly, if you have a few roles, say 3 or 4 roles, right? Wherein you can sort of show growth from one role to another. Okay. Or if you have not had a lot of promotions, you are in an individual contributor role, of course, but you haven't had a lot of promotion, maybe 1 or 2 roles only, right? Within that role or within those couple of roles, how do you show your career growth, right? How do you show growth in the work that you've done, in the impact that you've made? You can use projects for that, right? Particular initiatives or particular involvements that can be highlighted in order to show your growth from an earlier stage, from an earlier time in the role to a more recent time in the role. Okay. Besides that, if you're a manager, right? If you're a team lead, if you're leading a team of people, you already have leadership prowess, leadership experience to show on your resume. This is something that the B schools look for as well. What about, again, an individual contributor? If you are an IC, if you're an individual contributor, these projects or these additional initiatives at work or something for a limited period of time can sort of give you an opportunity to maybe lead a team as well, right? So in your everyday work, in your everyday responsibilities, you might not be leading a team. You would be an individual contributor only. But then there was a particular initiative for 4 months or 3 months of a year, right? Say last year for a couple of months, you were working on a particular project wherein you were the main head and there were people working with you, working under you. They might not have been reporting to you. You might not have been responsible for managing them or their, appraisals or things like that. Of course, that a manager would be, but at least you had a team of people working with you. Or if you were able to work with cross-functional teams, people from different departments, right? This is something that is also very important for a manager. They should be able to work with different kinds of people, diverse sets of people, right? So if this is the kind of situation, go for projects. If you need to show a leadership opportunity or if you had a leadership opportunity to work one of your projects, go ahead, mention it. It allows you to show management prowess. It allows you to show growth either from role to role or within the same role as well. Okay, in case you have fewer roles. That is. Alright. Now, besides that, when to not show projects? When are you not required to work on, show projects in your resume? One case is, of course, when you have tons of work experience. You won't be able to accommodate. Simple as that. It won't fit on your resume. Focus on your shorter, condensed versions of your achievements. Okay. Or if your entire role is one project. I have had this from my clients, especially from, say, consultants or from engineers of various kinds, right? Let's just take an example of an engineer itself. This is somebody who is working on one project throughout their duration of the entire role. Right? They were in a role for 1 year or 1.5 years, and throughout that period, they were assigned on only one project. Would it make any sense to show that project separately from responsibilities and achievements? No, right? Because all of their work has been within that purview of that particular project itself. So it's no point in highlighting it separately. You just focus on your responsibilities and achievements. Okay. Now that we know what they are, let's just look at a quick example. Right? How do you frame your projects? Again, you already know how to frame responsibilities and how to frame achievements. Right? You would see a 3 point sort of structure. One talks about the summary statement, overall what you did in the project, right? The end-to-end summary of it, you can say. Right? Second point allows you to talk about these things, right? If you worked with a cross-functional team, if you uh, coordinated with other stakeholders, right? If you feel the need to talk about the process in which you did your things, that would go in the second line, which is the methodology point, right? And finally, you have the result, the impact, the outcomes delivered, right? This is a three-pointer structure. But of course, you might not have a 3 point sort of structure ready for uh, a project which you might have worked on. You might have a broader idea, right? So let's just quickly read through this example over here. I hope everybody can see my screen clearly and just quickly read through it. What do we have over here? We have the what of it, that is the second point. Created a so-and-so monitoring tool for so-and-so purpose, right? Led a cross-functional team of 5 people in that, okay? The why part is the context. Okay. In case of any anomalies, issue identification, client teams need to be notified ASAP so that the tracking ticket is raised and other teams are not involved to troubleshoot the issue. See, in your resume, in your RNA, in your CV, you cannot really bring in a lot of background context. Too much background detail is not uh, one needed for your resume, and secondly, it cannot be accommodated in a resume either. So avoid going into too much background details. Okay, that's why we will minimize the why part. Okay? Then we look at the how part that talks about how exactly it was done, what were the different features incorporated, right? Uh, how this person would have worked with different teams, technical team, service team, operation team, for what purposes, things like that, right? And finally, the last 2 points show the outcome of it, right? So $59,000 annually was saved, and they achieved a manual, reduction in manual effort by 90%. Excellent, right? Along with that, it was also shortlisted for a particular award, best in MNC, best in class, whatever initiative. Okay, this is how we show it in a more condensed and point to point form. Okay, so these are the sort of this is how you would basically show your pointers, right? The first one talks about the summary statement. We have a team of 5 people to develop so and so tool to detect possible issue scenarios, blah 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 blah, with multiple features. Done. This is the overall summary of what the project was all about and what you did, right? Second point focuses more on the coordination aspect and the deeper aspects of how exactly you did it. Right? So coordinated with, sorry, this is a typo over here. It shouldn't say coordination. It should say coordinated. Coordinated with representatives from technical service and operations team to determine technical requirements and system parameters. And finally, the outcomes in a very condensed format saved costs of this much annually and reduced manual efforts by 90%. Shortlisted as MNC best in class, so and so, among 25 teams and India. Done. Okay. Not too much of background details, nothing like that. Okay, this is how we get this done. Okay, now as I was discussing already, the career progression helps you show your growth over the roles, over the companies, and over the years. Right, it allows you to show condensed responsibilities, to focus on your strongest achievements, and of course, these projects as well. Some of your most important and most significant projects can be included in the career progression session as well. Okay, the main purpose of this career progression session is nothing but to make the transition from the longer, broader, more extensive RNA to the more refined resume much easier for you. That's all. Okay. So with this, we have basically wrapped up the overall process as far as the RNA is concerned, which again, for the people attending today's session, that's the most important part for you. We are already closing the end of it. So I would just like to quickly take you through some of the other sections as well. Education, pretty straightforward, pretty simple. You mention your exact bachelor's degree, not just bachelor's degree for that matter. BTech in so and so, whatever is the degree, whatever specialization, you can mention that clearly. Okay, along with your college, the campus, your latest course, or if you've completed it, of course, your final course, and the date, month, and year of completion. Okay, if you've achieved any particular ranking, if you've achieved any significant percentile, make sure to include that over here. That is something which works in your resume. Okay, this is something that the B school would definitely be happy to see. And the same thing applies for 12th and 10th grade as well. Now, most of you with a lot of years of work experience, 12th and 10th grade would not be very relevant. We can just have it in the beginning. And finally, for your resume, this is something that you can omit very easily. Okay? Besides that, you have, of course, other certifications besides your main, that's your main uh, educational qualifications. You can also have your certifications, right? Done through online courses. And many of you, I believe, must have edX access as well, right? So you might be taking up courses through edX. This is where you mention it. Okay. The process is very simple. The flow is very simple. Just the actual course name, followed by the university or the company, whichever has created and curated that course. Okay. So it could be University of Washington or University of Toronto, whatever the case may be, or it could be Google, Cisco, etc. as well, because they also create many courses. Okay. And finally, of course, after that, you have the certification platform, which for edX courses will simply be edX. It could be Coursera, it could be Udemy in case of other courses you might have done from other sources as well. And finally, the month and year of completion. Simple. Okay. Technical skills, I will not go into too much detail on that, but these are operating systems, programming languages, database, client server technologies, and things like that, right? You can definitely add in your technical skills, but usually for a B school resume, technical skills are not too important unless these are skills which can help from a managerial perspective, right? So skills for dashboard creation, right? Skills that help you work better as a manager. Okay. So if you have those sort of relevant technical skills, you can definitely mention those over here. Otherwise, Java, C++, HTML, those would not be something that we would want to keep on your one-page B school resume. Okay. What else do we have? We discussed your extracurricular or extra professional activities, right? I have just one thing to say for these, be it volunteering, be it leadership experience. The most important part of this entire thing is the work that you have done in this role. So be it a leadership position, like as a president of a music club or some sort of a club, right? Or be it a volunteering experience, you volunteered with a particular NGO. The most important thing to show over here is what exactly is it you did, at what scale did you do that, right? And what was the impact of the work that you've done, right? These would be the most important aspects. If you just say that I was president of so and so club in college from this month and year to this month and year, it will not add a lot of value on your resume. Why? Because it comes across as you haven't done anything. Okay. So it becomes very important to focus on the work that you've done. This is completely in line with what we have for your professional experience as well, right? We want a clarity of what you've done at what volume and what is the outcome you generate. The same applies here, right? So there is no contradiction or no discrepancy between that and this. All right. Just make sure you're following the format. You're giving in all of the clear details, and you can just add it in along over here. Awards and extracurricular activities are pretty simple and self-explanatory. You can just simply add those over here and be done with it. That's all. Okay. Now that we're done with the overall CV, R&E process, responsibilities, achievements, everything, a few quick tips, right? Make sure you're using one font throughout the CV, right? What happens when you're using, when you're copying stuff from other sources, like maybe an older CV that you have, or you're working on another document side by side along with our documents, the CV and R&D templates, the CV and R&D documents, right? If you just copy paste stuff from here and there, you will have a lot of different fonts and all that, right? And it looks very messy. It doesn't work. If you ask me, I always prefer Cambria. That seems like the most professional font for me, and that's the case for most people I've discussed this with as well. So go for Cambria. Otherwise, you can go for Calibri as well, or maybe Arial as a last resort. Cambria is the best way to go, as far as my opinion is concerned. Okay, maintain a clear and consistent font size. That is, font size of 10 is the minimum. Okay, that's standard of what we suggest as well. Don't go any smaller than that just to fit more content into that one page resume, right? Because if it goes any smaller than 10, it becomes very difficult to read. Okay. Besides that, we have it's very important to have consistency in terms of dates and also in terms of currencies. I'll discuss that quickly as well. But for dates, as far as we can see, right? The first example over here, which has a cross mark, Jan 19, Jan space 19, Sept 4 letters dash 21, right? June again 4 letters apostrophe 2022. Don't mix up these together, right? The simple way is 3 letters because the smallest name is May, right? Of the months throughout the year. That's May, 3 letters. You get it done. If it is August, if it is December, if it is whatever, just make it 3 letters, even for June or July. Okay, and followed by the year. Simple as that. Okay. Make sure these dates are on the right edge of the document. Besides that, currency is another important aspect. Uh, the first and broader suggestion would be whenever you're putting in any currency in your CV, in your resume, in your RNA, try to keep it in the actual figure system. So if you get the data in terms of dollars at your organization, if you're getting data in terms of dollars, keep it in USD, keep it in dollars only. Okay. If you're getting in rupees in INR, keep it in INR itself. Okay. That's the first suggestion. Okay. When it comes to submitting, when it comes to finalizing your resume, depending on where you are applying, if you're applying to a school in the US, it's always a good idea to convert all figures into the US format, which would be USD. If you're applying in Canada, you can convert it into Canadian dollars, or USD is also fine, it's acceptable there, right? Again, if you're going for European schools, convert it to euro. If you're applying in India, go for rupee. Okay, you can make this conversion at the last point. You can have the numbers placed in as per whatever data you have at the moment. Okay, so these are the general uh, pointers overall. Sort of broader rules, broader guidelines. What you should definitely not do, mistakes that people often make, that you should try to avoid as much as you can. Focusing on format instead of content. I know I was talking about the format and all, but that's just to get you moving in the right direction. But what I mean over here is, do not focus on this aspect that it's not very colorful, it's not in a tabular form and whatever. We have to make sure that the content is right, okay, and you're presenting the right details that reflect your profile in the best light possible. Okay. Another mistake is many people go with a functional CV, right, which talks about their skills and everything, right? Technical skills like they would for a job CV. That's not what they want. That's not what the B schools are looking for. So no, please don't give them that. Okay. Another issue that many people face is presentation, either giving too little information or too much information, or writing long paragraphs, which, as we discussed, That's not the way to go. Okay? Or in fact, not emphasizing on the key points, key elements, right? Basically, when you're arranging your pointers, be it in your RNA or when you move it to the career progression section as well, right? Make sure you have the more significant and more important points higher, and then you go lower in terms of importance or priority. Okay. No clear career progression or not highlighting relevant skills. These are also issues. But again, when I say relevant skills, it doesn't mean your Java skills, your CAD skills, or whatever, which might not be relevant for a management perspective. Right? If you're going for a management program, make sure you're highlighting your management skills, your leadership skills. Right? That should clearly be highlighted in your content. Okay. So with that, we basically come to a close with the session. We will be sticking around for a couple more minutes to answer any other questions. Yeah, so feel free to go ahead, ask your questions. Me or my team will be answering them as well. And besides that, I would say all the best to everybody. Good luck, happy writing. And wherever you are in the process, if you've already started working, if you've not yet, bitten into the uh, RNA and the CV templates, get started, get moving, keep up the pace, and get this done. The sooner you get it done, I understand many of you might be busy with your GMAT preparation and other things as well. But trust me, the sooner you get your resume done, this headache will be out of your, out of your concerns, completely out. We will not bother you. We will not disturb you with, hey, where is your resume? Where is your RNA? Where is your CV? Right? You will be able to focus properly on your GMAT prep, on your courses, on your profile building activities, whatever the case may be. Okay. As soon as you get this out. Okay. So again, as I said, put your foot on the pedal and let's get this moving. Any questions from the group? If not, I would just have a couple of questions of mine, whether or not you found this webinar useful, how useful you found it. If you could just give your responses on that, that would be great. All right, somebody is asking, will this webinar be recorded and shared? I missed certain parts due to technical issues. Absolutely, the recording of this webinar should be available soon. And when I say soon, I think by the next week or so. Okay, so the recording of this webinar, as well as all the other webinars that have happened before this, will be available on your LMS portal that you can access on lms.thecareerlabs.com. Okay, if you're not familiar with the website, look at the emails that you've received from our team, and you can very easily log into it. Yeah. Alright, another question here is, do we change the resume to align to specific B schools? Sometimes that might be required, especially in case of people with longer work experience, right? Uh, so this is coming from somebody who has, brace yourselves, 30 years of work experience or something around 30 years of work experience. Okay. And I hope you don't mind me divulging that detail. But yes, somebody with 30 years of work experience, you can't necessarily put that into a one pager and be done with it. Right? And most B schools will be understanding of this fact. That being said, there will be some B schools which might require a shorter version or which might want you to still stick with that, uh, you know, I think I got most of the responses as well. Happy to see that most of you found it helpful. And yeah, as I was saying, there are some schools which will be understanding of the fact that uh, it will be difficult to, bring all of that into a one pager. So for them, they will accept it. Some schools might still want you to stick with a one page resume requirement. So that's fine as well. We can work on trimming that down. I hope that answers your question. Besides that, content-wise, usually that kind of a difference is, that kind of a modification from B school to B school is not required for MBA series or for MBA resumes, right? Because they just want to see your profile. Your profile remains the same wherever you're applying, right? Changes might be based on their region, so your currencies might need to change based on where you're applying. Okay, but not really your experiences. Those will remain the same. Your achievements, your responsibilities, those can remain the same. I hope that answered your question. All right, so since everybody has found this webinar very useful, that's good to hear. I would also want to know which part of the webinar you found the most useful. the Q&A session is still happening. So if anybody wants to make use of this, feel free to ask away. Okay, so I'm getting a very diverse set of responses. Some people like the components of a CV resume better. Some people preferred the responsibilities and accomplishments, the differences between them, and all of that. There are some people who really found the writing projects part very helpful. That's excellent. That's great. So I hope everybody has something to gain from today's session, and I really hope that it will help make your process easier for your process of making your resume much easier going forward. Right? Again, looking forward, my team is looking forward to getting updated documents from all of you. So let's move ahead with this and let's get you application ready. With that, let's end today's session. And it was nice connecting with everybody today. All the best and good night.